Let's talk about worldview thinking today. And we're going to start actually in the past, and then we'll bring it up to today. So let's start with the American Civil War. I'm a history fan. I'm just amazed at this titanic struggle that took place here in America on the sea, along the coast, inland, along rivers. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. My family got a chance to go to Gettysburg and to see the battlefield. And of course, up to then, everything I'd seen about Gettysburg was on a small map, and it had little arrows and dots where certain groups were and where mountains were and things like that. But when you go to Gettysburg, oh my land, it takes forever to drive around this thing. It's just a huge battlefield. And to think that thousands and thousands of people struggled there, just amazing. Well, so we're going to talk about a war today, a civil war, not the war against Islamic terrorism. And let me give you a couple of quotes to begin thinking about this from two people who've thought about our culture for quite a while. One is Chuck Colson, who was Nixon's hatchet man during the Watergate era. He said the culture war is not just about abortion, homosexual rights, or the decline of public education. These are only skirmishes. The real war is a cosmic struggle between worldviews. So here he is talking about what's going on today. And we think of the Civil War as battles. You know, here's Gettysburg, and here's Chickamauga, and here's Vicksburg, and here's Sherman going to the sea. And yes, those were battles, but those battles represented something much bigger. Those were two conflicting worldviews as far as how each side saw American politics. So the Union saw an indivisible union governing the country. The South believed in states' rights rather than the Union, that should take precedence. So these two areas of the nation struggled in certain key battlefields. And so today, similarly, we look at the abortion issue, we look at homosexual rights, or whatever it is, and we say, well, there it is, there's our struggle. But we're not realizing that our struggle is a worldview struggle, two opposing ways of thinking about things. And James Dobson from Focus on the Family said something really close to this. He said, nothing short of a great civil war of values rages today throughout North America. Two sides with vastly differing and incompatible worldviews are locked in a bitter conflict that permeates every level of society. So that's the part that I wanted to focus on right there. It permeates every level of society. So this is not a case of the soldiers went off to fight during the Civil War and the civilians stayed home and prayed for them and cheered them when they came back. This is a different kind of war. We are all involved. We're all involved. And it's whether we're talking to a neighbor over the fence, it's whether we're talking to families coming over for Thanksgiving, it's whether we're at the job, dealing with grandkids, whatever. It permeates every level of society. And I don't think we're doing very well. Chuck Colson said the same thing. The church's singular failure in recent decades has been the failure to see Christianity as a life system, or worldview, that governs every area of existence. And one more time, let's talk about the fact that we're all combatants. I'm going to use three quotations from the Apostle Paul, and he'll say the same thing. So, 2 Corinthians 10. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Do you hear that martial language there, the fighting language? We demolish arguments and every pretension, and we take captive every thought. So we're in a struggle, and we're offensively minded to go out and to knock down the bad arguments. He said it this way in Colossians, see to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy. So he says, just like you want to go out and take captive others, you want to not be a captive yourself. So here again, we're talking fighting. In Ephesians, Paul says this, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Put on armor. This is not a flippant, lighthearted kind of adventure that we're out on. We are in a struggle. So let's talk about what we mean by worldview. Then we'll talk about the two worldviews that are clashing in our society today. So worldview, you might think of it this way. It's like putting on a pair of glasses, dark glasses, when you go out in the sun. And it changes everything that you see, doesn't it? Everything changes. So your worldview is how you view the world around you. For example, I've heard it said this way: worldview is a picture of life. Or a worldview is how you see reality. So the Christian sees reality as really big. The Christians say there's this material world, that's part of reality, but there's another reality beyond that, and that's where God exists. So we have a supernatural and we have a natural world. It's worldview is also how we interpret everything that happens to us. Is it all random chaos, or is there some kind of organizing principle to our lives? Think of it this way: it's an assumption that we make about how the world really operates. So all those ways are saying the same thing. We all have these worldviews. So who are the combatants as far as this worldview goes, this struggle? Well, I would say there are more than what I'm going to cover today. So I understand if you say, well, aren't there other worldviews? Yeah. There's Islam, and there's the New Age worldview, there's Marxism. I mean, those would be some of the others, but I want to deal with the two big ones that are clashing, and we see it in the newspapers, and we see it on television. It's Christianity and secularism, or atheism, whatever you want to call it. All worldviews have to answer the same four questions. So it doesn't matter if it's a secular worldview, or a Christian worldview, or an Islamic worldview. All of us alive today have to answer four questions about what we think is going on with this world. First, and so what we're going to do, by the way, is to take these four questions, illustrate them, show the differences between the Christian and the secular, and then we'll talk about which one seems to be the closest to what reality really is. Okay, so let's go through the four. First is origins. The question is, where did we come from? So, origins, one. Two is morality. Now that we're here, how are we supposed to live? What's right? What's wrong? What's good? What's evil? Number three, somehow we've gone off the rails. The human race has had terrible things happen to it. How do we explain that? What's the cause of the problem of humanity? And then number four, pretty obvious, if there's a problem, how do we go about solving it? So these are the four questions everybody's going to deal with, because we all have ideas. We may not have written these down, but down deep, we're committed to a worldview that's going to answer the four questions. Where do we come from? How should we be living while we're here? What's right? What's wrong? What's the problem for the human race? And what's the solution? So let's do this. Let's go through these four. What does Christianity say? What does secularism say? So I'm not going to argue against one or in favor of the other. Let's just be honest about where their differences are. And boy, are these different, incompatible and different. So let's take origins. What's the Christian view of origins? One word: God. So God's the creator. He brings the universe into existence. He brings people into existence. And he puts something of his own image stamped into them. We're divine image bearers. And then he sent history off in a particular direction. So we had Abraham beginning to start the Jewish race, and then out of that comes Jesus. So the history is going someplace. So how do the secularists deal with those four issues? No God. The world's just happened. There's no plan. There's no architecture of any kind. In fact, if you ran the history of the universe backwards and then had it unfold again, it'd be completely different. Humans are not special image bearers. They're just a sophisticated animal. And history's not going anywhere unless you push it and you shove it. Marx did, and Engels did, and Mao did, and on and on. All right, so huge difference there. What about morality? What's the Christian view of morality? There's a standard beyond us, beyond the human race. It's God's standard. It's his nature. That's the standard of morality. And there is real right and wrong. We know it, and we often turn from it, and we do the wrong thing. We had free will, so we're held responsible for our failures. What's the secular view? Not those things. Where's the standard? It's not out there someplace. We're going to create it ourselves. Is there real right and wrong? Not anymore. Not with relativism. You do what you want, I do what I want. Free will, if you really talk to a secularist, they're going to have to admit there's no such thing as free will. I mean, after all, if the universe is only material, then that's all we are on the inside. We're just material. We're meat from top to bottom. We're a brain, but we're not a mind. So minds can have free will, but brains can't have free will. Brains just do whatever the chemicals tell it to do. And we are not held accountable. Right? So there's a huge difference there. Let's go down to the problem. What's the problem according to Christianity? Again, one word: disobedience. God set up something and we said no thanks. We walked away, and it's ruined us as individuals. It's ruined us in our relationship with each other. It's ruined our relationship with nature. It's ruined our relationship certainly to God. It's messed up nature on its own now. Nature groans, it says in the New Testament. So all of these things have come about because of disobedience. And we all have evil inside of us. We're all broken individuals. And I'm going to come back to that more than once, because that's a huge portion of what Christianity is talking about, the problem. The problem is here. It's not some group out there. It's not ISIS, or it's not a certain political party, or it's not some demagogue, or whatever it is. We're all part of the problem. So that's why we have guilt feelings, because we're failures. We're guilty. What does the secularist say as far as the problem? Not these things, not disobedience to a God. They're not evil inside of us. The evil's out there someplace. So what's the solution? Christianity says we are so messed up, we can't save ourselves. We need salvation from outside coming down to us. Unmerited favor from God. All we can do is put our hands out. We can't earn it. And we submit to God. God has a much better plan. He knows us better. And that's how we're going to get ourselves squared away. What does the secularists say? There is no God. We've got to create that salvation right here and right now. Now here's where all of us will come in, I hope, and take this information and run with it. It's just not enough to have this head knowledge about, well, okay, so that's good. Now I know what Christianity stands for. That's good. I know what secularism stands for. Who cares? What we have to do is when we go out in the world and we talk to others, we have to, in a nice way, convince them that Christianity, as a worldview, as wearing those glasses, as a worldview is the most reasonable worldview. It's a worldview that corresponds the closest to reality. And that's the way you want to live. You'll have a much more successful life if you match up with reality. You step out on a freeway, you're not matching up with reality, you're going to have a short lifespan. Okay, so let's talk about those four things again and see why it is that we're saying Christianity lines up better with reality. So let's go back, origins. Let's look at the scientific evidence. Science says the universe had a beginning. At first there was nothing, and then there was something. Now, the secularist has to say, out of nothing came something. That doesn't make any sense. I've never seen that happen. You haven't seen that happen. There's always a cause for something to come into existence. So the Christian view is that if there's a big bang that started the universe, there's got to be a big banger that got that moving, because the universe can't create itself. Something has to come in and get it going. And we say God did it. The secularist has to say it just happened. That's far less real, far less reality. Okay, now we got the universe here. What about the start of life itself? What's the secularists have to say? Non-life produced life. How? They have no idea. It's just an article of faith. It must be that way since there's no God. But we say, no. You don't get life from non-life. That's counterintuitive. There's a God that breathed life into this universe. Here's the third thing. Again, still thinking origins. Why is it that our universe is so finely tuned for life? The laws of physics, for example, the expansion rate of the universe, the interaction of atoms and all, it's all precisely done so that life can exist here. We are examples of design. On the inside, we've got molecular machines carrying out functions. We have DNA. What's DNA? It's computer code. Where do you get computer code? From a coder. So, I think Bill Gates said this is the most complicated computer code ever. We are an engineered species. Who does the engineering? Did it just happen? That makes a lot less sense. Here's a fourth area, still thinking of origins. Where in the world did mind come from? Consciousness, self-awareness, whatever you want to call it. How do you get objects that are not self-aware to become self-aware. Rocks are not self-aware. Hydrogen atoms are not self-aware. The tides are not self-aware. Clouds are not self-aware. But we are. How can inanimate things become alive, and then once they're alive, how do they start becoming aware and thinking about thinking? It's absolutely stumped scientists. They call it the mind problem because they can't figure out how to get that started. So, in the area of origins, which one makes more sense? I think the Christian worldview makes far more sense than the secular worldview. Let's go on to the second area, which is morality. Which worldview is better in morality? Well, I would suggest the person who is a secularist, who says there are no standards, actually doesn't live that way. And you can prove that. Step in front of them in line someplace, and they're going to tap you and say, "Get behind me." Why? Just because you don't like it? Maybe I like stepping in front of people. So that's my morality. You can have your morality, I got my morality. No, that's not what they believe. They believe there is some kind of standard out there. They will call things evil, for example. They won't say, "Well, I don't like that." They'll say, "That's evil." Where are they getting that standard? It's something beyond them. They want people to abide by some kind of bigger standard than them. They use language like "you should" or "you shouldn't." Now, a good secularist should never say that, because that implies there's something beyond them or beyond society at work there. So I think morality argues for the Christian perspective that says there is a standard out there that we're all supposed to match up with. All right, what about problems and solutions? I'm going to put these together and actually start the other way around. Let's start from the secular perspective. The secularist looks at this world and said, if people just had more money, that's how we would fix things up. We just have too much poverty, and it gets people angry and upset. Okay, so here's my question. America has more affluence today than it's had in the past. Are we a happier society? Are we less inclined to suicide? Are we less inclined to drugs? No. In fact, it's just the other way around. Oftentimes it's the affluent that are the least happy. Money doesn't buy happiness, as people say. But then secularists may say, okay, it's education. If we could just educate people, get them into books more, that will fix the human race. Well, I'd argue the same way. America is the most educated nation, at least it's the most educated in its history. How are we doing as a nation? Because of schooling, are we better people? I don't think so. What about science? People say science will solve our problems. That's what we need. Let science take over. But science is not set up to take care of the needs down deep that we have. It does wonderful things for us. It cools our homes. It helps us drive places that we can never get to before, and it gives us medicines to take. That's great. That's good stuff. But science doesn't do anything for our souls. It doesn't give us self-worth. It doesn't give us compassion. It doesn't bring love into our life. Those are the issues we all want. We want hope. We want all sorts of things. Science is not geared to give us that. So science is not going to be the solution. How about political systems? The secularist over and over again is going to put faith into a particular person or a political system and say, this will solve it. And then they get disappointed again and again. Marx is writing like crazy about, if we just had this new political system and take care of the poor workers. So it got put into effect. How did it work? Not so well. Look at Russia, look at China, no good. North Korea is trying a different political system. Terrible results. Cambodia had a terrible solution a while back, Pol Pot. So what's going on here? Well, the Christian view is don't trust people and give them a bunch of power because the heart's wicked. And so what do we have in America? We have a separation of powers. That's why there's that constant bickering. Don't complain about it. That bickering is good. You consolidate all the power under a person or just a small clique of people, and what's going to happen? They're going to run roughshod, and they do it again and again. We elect people, we're so excited, we put a new party into office, and then they disappoint us. Well, of course they disappoint us, because they're broken just like we are. So I would say the problem is out is us and the solution is outside of us. And the secularist is going to try to keep changing the things around us. And they're going to be disappointed. They've been disappointed over and over again in the past. So I guess my question at this point would be, if we have the right answers in where we came from and the way to live, morality, and what the problem is and how to solve it, if we have those correct answers, why aren't we winning? Why aren't we winning? And I think there are 3 reasons, and I'd like to look at these 3 reasons quickly, and maybe you'll come up with more. But here's number 1. We just don't know enough about ourselves as Christians and what we believe, and we don't know enough about what the world believes, the secularists. So we have a hard time interacting with them. So how do we solve that? Well, I'm an English major. Guess what I'm going to say? Read. Reading will help big time. And I'm talking about reading what the other people are saying out there. And I think a good way to do that is something like World Magazine. World Magazine looks at life, and I'm talking movies and sports and politics and education. It looks at everything in life from a Christian perspective. So you can find out what the world is doing, but you'll see it through a Christian lens. It's very powerful. So that's getting an understanding for life away from Christianity. As far as Christian theology goes, something like a book by Chuck Colson called The Faith. He looks at Christian theology. What does it mean to be a Christian? What do we believe? And how is it different from what the non-Christian believes? Really powerful. So I would say if you can get a hold of that and listen to what the other people are saying. If you have a non-Christian next-door neighbor, just listen, ask questions. Find out what he or she believes and why they believe that. Number 2, so one reason is we just don't have the information. Number 2, why aren't we more successful? We lack confidence. I've started and run an apologetics program at our church for 11 years. And over again, the thing I keep hearing is, thanks for the class because it gives me great confidence. So that's good to know we have truth on our side, and that will help us step up to talk to other people. So feel free to send for a resource list, give you some names of good books and websites and places to go to for further information. Please listen to some good apologists. They're out there all over the place. We have an apologetics class at our church, EFCC Apologetics. You can go to YouTube, type that in, EFCC Apologetics. You can watch some of our discussions and some of our class meetings that we've had. Email me. I'll be glad to send you more information about that. It's Gary at apologeticsforlife.org, and I'll send you more information about that as well as that resource list. And then I founded something called the San Diego County Apologetics Network, SDCAN, SDCAN. And we have a free certificate program in apologetics that will give you the foundation for all of these kinds of things that we're talking about, to give you the confidence that you can trust the reliability of the gospel, that you can trust the life of Jesus happened as it's recorded, that you can trust that there's a God. So if that's of interest, please email me. I'll give you more information. So that should help us on the road to more confidence. And then I think we have a third area of a problem. It's compartmentalization. Now what I mean by that is we have so many people that live Christianly and think Christianly on Sunday. They have that worldview thinking. They got their Christian glasses on Sunday. But then come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we take those glasses off. And we live pretty much as the world lives. And we shouldn't be doing that. So here's my challenge to you in a way, and I need it as well to be reminded of it. When we're reading something, when we're watching a movie, when we're looking at a television show, think of this. Just ask yourself, how does this thing, whatever I'm watching or reading or listening to, how does this thing reveal a worldview? So I'll give you a quick example. A few years ago, my wife and I watched a movie called Rio, story of a bird down in South America. It was a computer graphic kind of movie. So in the movie, he's a failure, kind of a nervous wreck, and an animal comes up to him toward the end of the film and says, listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Follow your heart. Trust your instincts. And he does, and he soars, and he becomes a huge success. Now, is that a Christian worldview? No. That's a secular worldview perspective. So even things as simple as a movie like that, we can begin thinking about how these two worldviews clash all the time. talk to friends and members of the class or friends of yours during the week, and keep thinking Christianly all during the week. Here's another thing we do to avoid compartmentalization is to think about our worldview and the mission field that we have. Now we think mission fields, we think of somebody in Asia or Africa or South America, but wherever you are placed, that's your mission field. And you can use your worldview to interact in that mission field. So pray about it. Pray about people coming into your life and having the confidence to share your beliefs in your mission field. We're all missionaries. Let me end on this. This is a quotation by Nancy Pearcey, one of my favorite authors. She said, having a Christian worldview means being utterly convinced that biblical principles are not only true, but also work better in the grit and grime of the real world. Isn't that a great statement? So we should first of all be convinced that biblical principles are true. Okay, that's great. But then we have to go out and talk to others and say, it's not just true, but it works the best. She says it works better in the grit and grime of the real world. That's what I want you to take away from this, that Christianity is not just something good to come to church and sing a song, but out in the world, it'll make your life work better. It connects life more closely to reality than any other worldview. So one more time, I've got some resources for you. Let me know if I can pass them along. And let's do a little more worldview thinking.